welcome to Athens City Council. This evening we will be meeting in council committees. The meeting will be called to order by the City Council President, who will then pass discussion over to a respective committee. The chair of the committee will introduce the discussion topics and provide an overview of the issues at hand. If needed, members of the administration will offer brief statements to provide further context. We will then welcome input from the community. Any citizens who wish to speak will be asked to state their name and address, both verbally and on the sign and sheet located at the podium. Individuals will be given one opportunity to share their thoughts, and the committee chair will have the authority to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Once all citizens have had the opportunity to speak within the 15-minute time period allotted for total public participation on each topic, the public comment portion will be closed. Council committee members will then continue their deliberations. There may be additional questions directed to the administration during this time. When the discussion on the topic concludes, the chair will indicate whether legislation will be introduced at the next regular session of council and move on to the next item on the agenda or adjourn the committee if their work is complete. The next committee chair will then call their committee to order, proceeding in the same manner as before. Once all committees have adjourned, City Council will conclude for the evening.
Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, August 25th, 2025 at 7:02 p.m. and we are in committee meetings this evening. We have 3 committee meetings, beginning with the Planning and Development Committee, chaired by Member Swank, joined by Member Thomas, Member Spielness, and Mr. Wood is not here this evening. Thank you. I will note, Member Swank, before I turn it over to you, that there is one bit of transportation. We don't normally do announcements at committee meetings, but I want to make sure the public is aware that there is a change to the Stimson Avenue Bridge traffic. The City of Athens announces that the Stimson Avenue Bridge will operate one-way only inbounds, as it has this past week, beginning today until September 12th at 5 p.m. And this is necessary for the change of the construction crew from one side of the bridge, the north side of the bridge, to doing work on the south side of the bridge. So during this time, all traffic on Stimson Avenue Bridge will be permitted inbound to Athens only. And motorists who wish to exit Athens should use East State Street, Richland Avenue, or Columbus Road as alternative routes. Member Swank.
Thank you, Member Corral, and I think I might follow up on that, and before we jump into the first of 3 items, go a little bit off script. 26 years ago this week, I took up residence in Pickering Hall as a dorm director, my wife and I, for 2 years. 225 freshman boys, when all you needed to do to get into Ohio University was to produce a diploma from any accredited high school in the state of Ohio. That first night, we gathered all 225 boys in the basement, the big rec room at Pickering Hall, to give the opening statement for the beginning of the year, the rules and regulations, how we were going to operate the dorm. I stood up on the table and basically said, gentlemen, we're going to subscribe to the dumb enough philosophy this year. We're not going to sniff around your door, see what you may be smoking. We're not going to check the can of beer to see if it's 3-2 or high beer. And we're certainly not going to check our watch at 2 in the morning to see if you've escorted your guest, your female guest, out of the dorm. However, if you're dumb enough to do one of those things, be prepared. Unfortunately, in the city over the weekend, we had 2 of those dumb enough incidents. Saturday night, a young gentleman decided instead of finding a restroom, he would use the entranceway to the River of Time boutique on West Washington to urinate. Fortunately, or coincidentally, one of the workers at that store happened to be walking by after dark, and quite honestly gave her a piece of her mind with words I can't say in this council chamber this evening. Young man ran away, still did the damage. That same evening, some budding artist decided that they would desecrate the Keith Wild mural on Carpenter Street, the one that stretches for over 60 feet that tells a story. While we don't know today who did these things, we did see a community begin to come together today. Keith spent hours last evening in his driveway playing Mad Chemist to come up with some formula, some liquid that would take the graffiti off of the mural. And today, he and Pizza John Gutenkamps, by hand, literally scraped it all off without ruining the mural. I got a call today from the owner of the property where that mural is located. Just so happens she and I attended the same high school in Akron. And she said to me, Alan, you know what? We're better than this as a city. And rather than making this a negative, it's time to turn this kind of thing into a positive. And just like we try to establish expectations with those young men in Pickering Hall, which, by the way, anybody want to guess how many false fire alarms we had in 2 years in that boys' dorm? 1. And it was 3 girls from Brown Hall next door that we caught. But just as we established those expectations with those young men 46 years ago, the owner of that wall thinks we can establish those expectations in the city by coming together, not dwelling on what happened, but crafting a path of kindness going forward. So, President Crowell, if I'm out of line, I apologize, but based on those 2 things, I think it's time that we step back and remember what Athens is, and we can do better. All right, Planning and Development Committee. First item is fairly cut and dried, an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 29, Housing Regulations, Chapter 29.03, Rental Dwelling, Short-Term Rental, and Housing Permit, Section 2903.05, Authorized Agent in Title 1, Chapter 29.03. Unless you're Mike Dawson suits, you probably don't know what our code says from cover to cover, but basically all we're doing here is changing or proposing a change, 2 changes. One, assigning a designated local emergency contact in rental properties, and secondly, adding a $25 per unit for each unit owned by a person or business residing 50 miles or more outside the corporation limit, in addition to the standard rental fee. That's an introduction to the ordinance. I'll turn it over to the administration. Mayor Patterson.
Thank you, summed it up well. This is changing that particular code to include the challenge. It was the former language, or the current language. The proposed change in there, in particular, to have an emergency contact makes it more advantageous to whoever owns the property to have someone who is here as the emergency contact should something happen with that rental unit.
Thank you. Members of the public. I feel like you two are on the East Coast and the West Coast. Members of the committee that are with us tonight.
Well, this is such a reasonable and I think really important minor change that will provide us with more access to folks who can do something if there's a problem with rentals. So we don't have to be chasing down somebody too far away or not able to find somebody at all. I think this makes a lot of sense.
I would agree, yeah.
Very good. At the last meeting, I talked about possibly tweaking the rental permit fee charges. I think that's a conversation we're going to need to have, but not at this point in time. Certainly like to talk with the auditor and the chair of the finance committee to see if that's a necessity. But I think the quicker we can get these 2 things put in place, the quicker we can resolve situations. Case in point, we had a young man put in a patio in the front yard all the way out to Woodward Avenue without permission. Fortunately, we had his contact information, and I was able to call him on the phone in California, and we resolved the situation very quickly, and everything's hunky-dory, and the city got a free curb out of the deal because the gentleman put the curb in, and it's very nice. But many times we can't find those people. And I think this will go a long way in establishing that contact information. Item number 2, Title 49, we have a special right-of-way permit request for 22 Stimson Avenue. 22 Stimson Avenue is the old Bellavino wine shop building. For those of you who've been around a long time, it's the old Sutton's One Stop location. And Ryan, if you could give us the slide. All right, you're standing in the street. I was standing in the street on Stimson Avenue today, in the parking spot. Where that NOPEC brochure is, the sign would be right in front of that, roughly the size of a standard real estate yard sign. That's all the bigger it would be. Because the right-of-way goes up to this close to the building, the sign will need to be out about a foot in the right-of-way. It'll be in that mulched area, won't interfere with pedestrians on the sidewalk to the left of the building or pedestrians on the sidewalk in front of the building. The applicant, Michael's not here to do the invitation, but did go down to the code office, paid the fee, and filled out the paperwork and is bringing this before council. Mr. Mayor Patterson.
You know, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Glad that there's been some resolution on
Yes.
that parcel.
Members of the audience. Members of the committee. Okay. Could be a short meeting tonight. Bullet point number 3. This involves a resolution in support of establishing an ad hoc one-year Affordable Housing Commission subcommittee under the Neighborhood Revitalization Committee to review rental code inspection processes to enhance efficient and effective code compliance and rental unit safety. The resolution that we've been discussing tonight has been in the works for several months and was approved by the Affordable Housing Commission last Tuesday. That commission, the Affordable Housing Commission, is charged with making, and I quote from our code, quote, recommendations to the Athens city government on policies and procedures related to housing issues, including but not limited to housing code and enforcement services, end of quote. This subcommittee would be charged with delivering research and data-driven recommendations on possible initiatives and practices that would lead to greater efficiency and compliance with existing city code, with the ultimate goals of improving city services and ensuring the safety and welfare of renters in all rental properties across the city. Mr. Mayor.
I have nothing new.
Okay, members of the audience.
I'm Rob Delich, live at 124 Morris Avenue here in the city. I generally attend the Affordable Housing Commission meetings. I think this last one I just watched it virtually because I was busy with work, but I support this proposal. This is very much like what the Pedestrian Accessibility Ad Hoc Committee was like, except that it didn't fit underneath the committee already, so City Council created it directly. But I think this is exactly the same kind of arrangement. It's an attempt to get a group of people together that are smart enough on the topic and can do the research that's required to create a report and advise the city and City Council on how best to address these issues with rentals in our city. So I want to endorse this proposal. I think this is a great idea. I think that if anybody's familiar with the Pedestrian Ad Hoc Committee that was formed a few years ago, that it produced a tremendous report that was really helpful and is still being used by the city and probably will be for years to come. And so I think that this is a good approach to this problem. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Other members of the public.
John Molinaro, 87 University Estates Boulevard in the city. I come here with a fairly unique perspective in that I have owned rental property in a university community about the size of Athens, did that for several decades, but I don't have a financial stake in any decision made by this council because I don't own any here. That community, which was a town-gown community, had far stricter codes than Athens and far stricter code enforcement. As a landlord, I deeply appreciated the codes and their enforcement. They helped me identify issues that could affect my tenants. They provided a second set of eyes that helped me see developing problems early enough to save money on repairs. They help me avoid potential liability by providing an independent record of the excellent conditions in which I kept my property. And moreover, they allow me to compete on a level playing field with other landlords who are less concerned about property upkeep and the welfare of their tenants. Those codes, interestingly, those codes were adopted when the Dean of Students at a local university became concerned about the deplorable, unsafe housing conditions for many of their students, their young faculty, and their support staff. Conditions that are similar to those that I have personally seen in some of the less well-maintained properties in Athens. Disgusted with the situation, he ran for mayor on the platform of addressing the poor conditions of so much of the rental housing. He won overwhelmingly. His community became a model for other town-gown communities, and after a stretch as mayor, his success in solving the community's rental housing problems resulted in his election as our state senator when the longtime incumbent retired. Forming a subcommittee to address this issue will be a win for the city. It will be a win for its administration, and most especially a win for renters whose health and safety is threatened daily by toleration of a few irresponsible landlords who tarnish the reputation of upstanding landlords and the city as a whole. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Other members of the community?
Hi, my name is Eric Lee. I live at 7th 3rd Street in Athens. My wife and I own the Athens Real Estate Company. We manage about 330 rental properties in and around the city. And I'm also in support of this. I think evidence-based, data-driven solutions can do nothing but improve code and code enforcement. Our code officers do a great job with the resources they currently have, but I think everyone can agree that having more eyes on the problem would make better solutions. So I'm in support as well.
Thank you. Anyone else from the community?
Mary Abel, 48 Strathmore, but I'm here speaking as a member of the Affordable Housing Commission, and I would urge your support of this resolution. I think one of the things with this resolution is making sure that we in the city have a good rental situation and that we care about the health and safety of all the renters who are in those facilities. And I think this is also one of the things that when I first started attending the commission meetings, even though I was not a member during those 2 years, we had people come before us and talk about some of the problems and concerns that they had in rental facilities. And you've certainly heard many coming before the city council in the past. And I think by working together, this is one of the things that we can collaborate on, we can work together on, also enforce the initiatives through the comprehensive plan, and I think in the long run, making it a good way so that we protect the health and safety of all of the university students coming in, which I am sure part of their parents want. And if you've ever lived in outside housing here as a student, as I did, it was what I could afford. Some of it wasn't always the best. And so I think this is one way that we can look at that and really make it better for everyone in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the community have a comment this evening? Yes.
Hi, I'm Emery Matthey. I am a student at Ohio University, and I heard a lot of people bringing up student rentals. So just a quick anecdote. I signed my second lease over the weekend, and my friend is lovely, and she said, "Oh, thank God, I can't wait to get out of this apartment." And she wants to get out of that apartment because there's mold in her shower. She doesn't want to submit a maintenance request because there's a fee for submitting maintenance requests. And I told her, "Hey, that's a code violation. You can't have mold or contaminants." And she said, "Well, at least my apartment doesn't have mice. A lot of my friends have mice in their apartment." And there's a threshold between, yes, college kids, not all that good at taking care of homes and properties. I understand that. But I think that there comes a point where infestations aren't something that the city should condone. And I think that the more effort we put into reducing those environmental hazards, the better the living conditions are. And having met with a former code enforcement officer in Nelsonville, obviously a different county, a different city, not a different county, it seems like a large issue is understaffing. and lack of resources. So the ability to have more robust resources to help these student renters, because they do make up a significant portion of the rental population in Athens, I think that the living conditions for Athens holistically would just be improved. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? Members of the committee?
Okay, well, I guess I will speak. If I've told you this story before, which I have told many times, I guess I apologize, but both my sons went to OU and lived here afterwards for a bit. And both of them lived in places that had serious safety issues. And that got me interested in doing this and getting involved with this sort of thing. So briefly, my son Brian, when he first moved into one of his places on High Street, he had seen the place and it looked fine. It was on the top floor of a 3-story building. And he put the key in, he opened the door, and there was the ceiling, the roof, and everything right on the floor in front of him. He looked up and saw birds. So this is not good. This first day, now imagine if he'd been standing there instead of, seeing it after it happened. So that's one. Then my other son has lived in a few places that were so bad, he didn't want me to come and visit it, but he would call my husband to come and fix things because the landlord wouldn't, like holes in the wall with things flying through there that he didn't know was in the closet or whatever. Not very observant, but in any case. So those kinds of things really shouldn't happen. Also, as a researcher and professor of social welfare history and policy at OU, I heard my students' stories about their rentals, which I helped them advocate with their landlords. So I'm asking that the council approve this one reading resolution, hopefully next week, and create an ad hoc one-year subcommittee under the Affordable Housing Commission, as was described by Member Swank. So I just want to say no city and no organization is perfect. Although we have knowledgeable and considerate rental code inspectors who have a lot on their plate and cannot inspect all rentals annually, which the law requires. The problem is that everyone knows that the code office is under-resourced, as was already mentioned. In fact, based on their own data, in 2024, only 76% of the city's 5,825 rentals were inspected. In other words, renters had a 1 in 4 chance of living in places that might not be code compliant. This is particularly relevant because about 75% of our residents are renters, many of whom, as you know, are students. So in trying to look at this over the last few years as I've been on city council, and more recently, I've talked with dozens of community members as well as organizations about rental safety. I've talked with attorneys, university administrators, several landlords and renters, members of the Board of Realtors, the West Side Community Association, and more. In fact, the consensus has been that this review is long overdue. Several people have offered to either serve as a volunteer on the subcommittee or they want to be interviewed or participate in a focus group. People want to be heard and share their ideas. So, part of the question has been, why is it okay for the Affordable Housing Commission to want to do this? Who are they? So, as was described earlier, we have a mission that clearly states that we're involved with housing issues, and furthermore, in the duties and powers and duties that were in the ordinance that authorized the Affordable Housing Commission, it says, and I quote, "Review and make recommendations to the Athens city government on policies and procedures related to housing issues, including but not limited to housing, code, and enforcement services." And it goes on to say, there's a lot of other things, by the way, even sidewalks and zoning and a whole bunch of other stuff, which we'd love to be part of talking about. So it also says, act as a liaison between the members of the community and local government. So what I'm suggesting here is that we're not proposing this project as a gotcha or to point fingers. We're not looking for bad guys. We want to find some solutions. I want to emphasize that Athens has many responsible landlords. Unfortunately, to the frustration of those very responsible landlords, we have some landlords that cut corners, won't keep up their rentals up to code. This has been going on for years. In fact, under the Housing and Neighborhoods Priorities section in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, published in 2020, 5 years ago, 2 of the 4 priorities focus on rental issues. These priorities are improve the student rental experience and empower the code office. The plan further recommends strategies such as expanding code office staffing, developing searchable online rental databases, and increasing housing-related collaboration with Ohio University, who, by the way, is very interested in looking into these kinds of things. And also, the Code Office in their annual report in 2024 said their goals are to aggressively work towards reducing rental violations, addressing the increasing levels of rental inspections in a timely manner, continue to review coding staff requirements, and bring them in line with work demands, departmental directives, and objectives. So they want to have this done too, but where's the plan? So we're offering to help with that plan. We're offering to give you free, knowledgeable, hardworking community members who want to be heard and are eager to help. I want to point out that our mayor collaborated with Rod McDavis and back then in 2017 to enact this ordinance, primarily with Michelle Pappy driving the charge on it. Everyone was on board and it was unanimous. So, and I also want to mention that this is an ordinance passed by council unanimously that is asking the administration to please cooperate with us in making this happen. This is an ordinance. So the mayor makes administrative decisions about how policies are to be implemented, and we're asking him to help us implement that with this free service. We know that more rentals are coming. We have the Ridges that has up to 700 units. Some of them will be rentals, some of them will be owner-occupied, but a lot of more rentals are potentially in our future. So I just want to say that we have some complex challenges with our rental code situation, and we want to come up with things that are cost-effective, that make sense, that are doable, and I've heard some very creative, really great ideas coming from the people I've talked to already. So, and they could be easily, some of them implemented. Others, maybe not, but it's worth talking about it. So I probably droned on too long, but this is something that's been really important to me for a very long time. I'm very passionate about it, and I'm hoping that we can make this happen. Thank you.
Thanks.
I would agree with everyone's sentiments so far. I watched the Housing Commission meeting last week and the discussion that went with it. I wanted to ask, we got an email from Michelle Pappy about this, and her suggestion for maybe adjusting the end date than the end of the year to maybe allow more time at the end of the year to address some of the things that come up. I think that's probably what she means by that. That might be something worth discussion if it ended in October instead of December, just to allow a few weeks if something were to occur in the end of the year rather than wait till January. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it's needed.
To that end, Clerk Walker, correct me if I'm wrong, if we bring this forward next week as a resolution, the resolution could be changed at that time and voted on?
Sure.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah, I wanted to say that my intention with this was to hopefully have it done by October, but not be obligated to give the report until December. That's kind of that's why I padded it a little bit. So,
Very good.
anyway.
Members Mike?
Yes, sir.
May I? I apologize to the committee for bringing this up now, and it's really just a matter of semantics. But as I was reading through this for the third time late this afternoon, this idea of how the members of the subcommittee are appointed, and it's really just a semantics issue, I think, to me. For the commission to appoint a city council member to the subcommittee, as far as I'm aware, and this is quite frankly not about the current president, but looking forward to the future of Athens City Council, I believe it's only the president of city council that can officially appoint city council members to boards or commissions or committees. So
And
it's
I
just a
think
little bit of semantics of how that's
I
worded.
had that in there, and then somehow it disappeared with my many
Okay.
changes.
I don't know if it's approved, and I don't know, the
Okay.
law director's not here tonight, the language, I think appoint is to assign, is to sort of tell somebody you shall do this,
Yeah,
rather than, and I'm
others
sure
we can.
the process would be to work and, have people agree to their appointments, but
yeah.
that seemed a little bit backwards to me for the
Okay,
president of
let me,
council, not to be involved in the
I
appointment.
get that, and again, I did have that in there, I know I did, so let me fix that.
Thank you, Member Swank.
So for next week, bullet point 1, Title 29, bullet point 2, Title 49 would come forward as a first reading, and the Affordable Housing Commission would come forward as a one-reading resolution on next Tuesday's agenda, the second. The first is Labor Day. That concludes the Planning and Development Committee.
Excellent. Thank you, Member Swank. We now move on to the Transportation Committee, chaired by Member Spielness, joined by Members Clodfelter, McCary, and Member Reisner.
We got matching shoes almost.
Yeah.
Unusual for me.
Those are nice.
Here comes
Good, as it should be.
Your
Okay.
committee.
Okay, I just wanted to get the flag that it was fine. All right, so the first one is the East State Street Signal Improvements Project, number 367, amend 0125. Okay. I received an email from Andy Stone, and he said, "The purpose of both these ordinances is to remove some pressure from the Street Fund 220, while there are enough certified resources for all the commitments council has authorized out of the Street Fund. Those resources include all estimated revenue for 2025 through the end of December. However, many of the expenses come due in the summertime, and you have to have money in the bank before you can encumber the funds." Sort of obvious. That has led to a cash flow problem in the 2020 fund. Here are specifics. East State Street Signal Improvements Project 367, remember that one? This amends 00125. My intent, I'm quoting Andy here, for 00125 was to increase the appropriation by $230,000 in 593 East State Street TIF Fund, TC 600 to be transferred to Streets 220. Because this crossed a couple of years and amended a previous year's ordinance and the semantics of how the original ordinance was worded, it only increased the appropriation by $10,000. This ordinance needs to be an appropriation in 593 for $220,000 that will then be transferred to Streets 220. This will help cash flow in the street fund. I would like for this to pass under suspension, either at first or second reading. Any further comments from the mayor or treasurer or auditor? Any comments from the audience? Anybody? Any comments from the committee? Yes.
Thank you. This may be a question for the administration, but I was just looking for a little clarification on what happens when projects time elapses and it goes across a few years and then it contributes to this sort of funding challenge. I was just looking for a little clarity on that if anyone from the, yes, perhaps our auditor?
We have a lot of projects that go over many years, and they can do that. Part of that process is the encumbering on a purchase order. And then that money is held back out of the budgeting process and unappropriated balance from year to year so that it is still in the fund to pay for the expenses a year or 2 or 3 even down the line.
And just
Yes.
to add to that, I mean, the auditor mentioned this, is that anytime we know that we have a project that's going to take longer than a year to accomplish, sometimes it's within the year, but it gives us that buffer to be able to carry over by having a project number. If something doesn't have a project number to it, at the end of the year, that money gets pulled back and it isn't, we'd have to go back and ask for a new appropriation in the new coming budget or the new year budget. But with a project number, we're able to carry that project for as long as it's an open project. Another example would be, and I can't remember what the project number is, for the West State Street Ball Fields restrooms. That has a project number associated with it. That's carried over for more than a year now. So you'll see things like that. So it just allows us to be able to keep the project alive and going with funding that either has been appropriated and carries over, or, as the auditor was saying, has an open PO associated with it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions, issues? All right, moving on to the second item. Again, this is from Andy Stone. 2025 Street Paving and Repairs Project number 385, amend 52-25. This amends the annual paving ordinance to reduce the overall amount from $700,000 to $620,000. Additionally, it increased the State Highway Fund 225 contribution by $30,000 and adds permissive wheel tax funds 226 for $150,000, then decreases the Street Fund 220 contribution by $260,000. The purpose of this change is to alleviate cash flow problems in the Street Fund. I would like to, quoting Andy here, I would like to pass this under suspension at first reading as paving is underway and we are going to need to change the encumbrances before we pay the bills. So apparently there's some pressure here. So I guess we'll see it next week. Administration, anybody? Yes.
Just to say that everybody knows the annual paving, it has already started. We're just changing where we're taking the money from different funds. Leaving more money in the street fund, taking more from the wheel tax and state highway fund. So no new money, and yeah, so you could say we're kind of rushing along, but it's going to be an ordinance you've already passed. We're just amending the amounts.
Okay. Any comments from the audience? Concerns? Yes?
Eric Lee, 73rd Street. Maybe I missed something. Is the total that we're spending on street repair going down?
Yes.
Are we going to do less street repair then?
No, I mean, the list that went out, that has already been approved for doing milling and paving and crack seal, that is still moving forward. This is just alleviating monies in 220.
Sure.
Because we have, and this is worth mentioning too, because the word cash flow has come up a couple times. We've got debt that we have to pay back on places like Dairy Lane and Stimson Avenue project because some was loan, other funding came from 220 and from the wheel tax and the state highway tax. So this is just taking some of the pressure off of 220, and we have other funding sources that we can place that with. So it's not changing anything with the street paving that's going on.
Okay, so there's not going to be any less, cut back to service for street paving pothole repair. Okay.
Yeah, we have a list a mile long, really, of all the things that we could do in the city.
Okay.
And every summer, they have to choose the ones they think are the most important, prioritize. Then they estimate the cost to get those things done. They will all be done this year.
Okay.
And usually, if we have extra money, then we'll try to find the next one down the list. But we're not going to do that this year. We're going to do what we said we would and stop there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any comments from the committee? Anybody else want to talk?
Just a comment. I'd like to tell the administration I'm really happy about the milling and paving on Mulligan. Thank you.
I think there's an individual in the audience here too that appreciates the paving that's taken place. Yeah, I mean, not to belabor this, but again, I think Mulligan is a prime example to where could the entire street from end to end, from Hickory all the way up to Longview, have been repaved? It could have, but it would have sucked a lot of the money out of our annual repaving to do the entire street. But what we did tackle was some pretty significant rough patches along there. The same thing happened on Longview Heights, to where there were some areas that certainly needed to be repaired, but not the entire street. There are some streets in the city of Athens that the entire street did have to be milled and repaved again. So it just depends on the street itself.
Well, unless there's anybody else, transportation is done.
Thank you, Member Spionis. We will move on to Finance and Personnel, chaired by Member Reisner, who is joined by Members Clodfelter and McCary. Member Wood is absent this evening.
Excuse me. For Finance and Personnel Committee, we have several appropriations to talk about and one transfer of funds. The first item is $13,178.40 to General Fund TC 600 for transfer. Would the administration or the auditor care to speak to that?
Yeah, we received some money for the court, from a court order. And we put it, because it came through court, we thought it should go into the general fund for court, but it's actually needs to go into the law enforcement trust fund. So first of all, we need to move that money, $13,000 plus, from the general fund into the LETF fund. And then we were only supposed to keep half of that, so we will have to then send half of that back to the county, and that's basically all it is.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say about that one.
Anything? Mr. Mayor, anything? Audience? Members of the committee? No? Well, then we'll get to the next item, $6,589.40, which is roughly half of what we were just talking about, to Law Enforcement Trust Fund, 200, 300 court orders. So I guess that's the part that's going back to the county?
Yeah. Excuse me. This is appropriating that amount so that we can send it back to the county.
Okay.
Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself there on that last explanation.
That's all right.
but-
Yeah.
Excuse me.
You okay?
Yeah.
Anyone know the Heimlich maneuver? Audience, anything about this transfer? Committee? Member McCary?
Thank you. I was just interested in any examples that the administration might be able to share of when we get this kind of infusion into our courts and under what kind of circumstances some of it might go back to the county. Is it a person who got in trouble for something and had to pay $13,000?
Yes.
Okay, it is. Okay.
Yes, and we do get these. This is probably a pretty good one, but that's where we put either retribution or if there's a drug arrest and money and items are confiscated by the police department, then we get money for this fund through that also. But because it's that drug task force, which is combined officers, we split the money.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, anything to add to that? Okay. Next item is $5,000 to General Fund Police, transaction code 200, additional funds for vehicle repair.
Yeah, this is for repair of the Durangos. The Durangos cruisers are performing less than exceptionally. So we already drew down from our appropriations back in June and probably drew down too much out of what should be the police department's operating budget. So we're just asking for this to increase so that we can get the police cruiser repaired.
Are these the vehicles that we're leasing from Enterprise?
Likely. I can get that information, solid information for you on that. But
Okay.
We do have the police cruisers that are under the Enterprise lease agreement.
Yeah. I was just wondering who would be responsible for repairs or warranties, that sort of thing. So,
I can get that information for you.
great.
Councilmember Reisner.
Mayor Otter, Treasurer, anything?
I think the only thing I would add was the deputy auditor asked, like, I think she was thinking these first three that you just spoke of, if those next week probably could be suspended and passed, maybe in one ordinance, she had mentioned.
Or second reading,
Or, second reading too? Okay, or
Yeah.
second reading, sorry, I missed.
Okay.
but yeah, it's basically a bookkeeping activity, so, you know, it'd be nice if you go ahead and pass it early, but certainly, our next meeting will be next month, so it'd be nice to at least have it done in September.
Okay. You have all that acting, soon-to-be acting Chair of Finance, McCary?
Oh, we'll come back to this then, okay?
Just to let everybody know, I won't be here next week. In fact, I won't be around for 7 weeks. I'll be in Thailand, so discussing global issues. Next item, does anyone want to talk about the $5,000? Okay, good. Next is $105,000 to APR Debt Fund, transaction code 400 for debt payment. So we got a bill coming up. Is it going to be suspended?
I don't know that it needs to be suspended, but again, this is to pay our debt service on the pool.
Right. So, no need to do that. then.
I don't know offhand, I'll certainly know by the time the ordinance is presented. But yeah, basically we have to transfer money into the debt account line to pay it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that one and the next one is.
Okay. Audience, anything about the debt on the swimming pool? And we need to pay it because they might repossess it, you know, so. Walk out there one day and there's just a big hole in the ground. Let's see.
I will say,
Yes, Mayor.
this is probably a good public service announcement, even though the pool is soon to close down for the season. There was an incident that occurred a few days ago, and that was that someone, against the rules of the pool, brought a glass, some type of glass container, which found its way into the pool and broke, and which leads then to whatever tank of water. This was the leisure pool to be completely drained. It has a significant financial impact because the substrate and the filters and whatnot that we use was just put in and should have worked through the rest of the season. And unfortunately with this, we had to clean that out. It will be filled again partially, if not fully. But it won't be open to people swimming in it. The dive well, the tot pool, the splash pad are still operational. The slide, though, and the leisure pool have been shut down for the remainder of the season for human use. It will be open for the dog swim.
Okay. Are there any CCTV cameras out there to, look for perpetrators?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's an interesting thing. I know that Director Catherine N. Jordan has been working hard to try and figure out how this happened.
Right.
But you can't bring glass items of any type into the pool area, or else it's going to lead to something like this, where you've just ruined it for everybody else, whoever did it. But at this point, don't know who it was.
Members of the audience, anything to say about this? Committee?
Okay. Let's see. $48,700 to street rehab fund, transaction code 400 for debt payment on new SID loan. Oh, yeah, the good old SID. I just thought of a quip, but I better not. Okay. Mayor? Anything?
Just paying down on our loan that we
Okay.
have for
Refresh our memory what a SID is.
SIB.
SID?
Yeah, it's a low-interest loan that we're able to take out for infrastructure, in this case, for the West Union Street project.
Uh-huh.
And since it is loan, we have to pay it back, unlike the grants that we get for street projects.
Right.
State Investment Bank, I believe, is the acronym.
State Investment.
Bank. It should be B, not D.
SIB.
It's D on our agenda, but it
Oh,
should be
you're right.
SIB.
That's-
Should be B.
This is SID.
Yeah, it's a SIB.
That would be a special improvement district, which we
Yeah.
don't have one right now.
Okay.
I think this is a new payment. We
Uh-huh.
usually try to make these transfers early in the year
Yeah.
for loans because we already know what the payment's going to be. But I think we're just starting payment on this, and so we just found out this year what our payment amount would be.
Okay. Audience, anything to say about this? This SIB, SIB, not SID, SID? Okay. Next of appropriations, $100,000 to sewer fund, plant, TC 300 for increased wastewater treatment plant electric costs. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Councilman Reisner. As you had asked me before the meeting tonight, with the solar arrays down there, why is this? And it's because of the significant number of heavy rain events that we've had here in the city of Athens. One of the things that the wastewater treatment plant has had to do is turn on their blowers in the aeration tank and running overtime. Those blowers are high energy consumers, so they're having to use those well beyond what was anticipated in any season. But again, due to the heavy amount of rainfall that we had in June and early July, has led to an increase of power usage beyond what is normally budgeted for in the wastewater treatment plant.
Auditor, treasurer, audience, comment on the electric bill. Member McCary.
Thanks. It sounds like we won't be able to predict whether this is going to be an annual event because it's based on rainfall, but this technology for aeration is expensive to use at this pace. Do you have any thoughts on how this might impact our budget moving into the next year?
It's something that we're certainly going to make note of from this year moving forward, to where we have a little bit more buffer in that account for the electric bill. We have such a significant amount of the energy that's being used there and at the pool and the community center is coming from our 2.5 now megawatt solar arrays, plural. But we're still have a power purchase agreement with Kokosing Solar. To where it's basically at market rate because of the way that's structured. That year 6, if you remember, is when we plan to outright buy the system, because Kokosing Solar will have realized all of their tax credits, and at that point we'll really be able to dive in and make some adjustments with budgeting for it. But to your point, let's be real. The climate's not changing in a favorable direction moving forward, and we're having to sit there and think differently than we have in the past. And so duly noted that we'll continue to monitor that as we look into 2026, when we're not done with 2025.
Right.
Member Kleinfelder.
I'm just curious. I mean, that is a massive increase in the electric bill. Has anybody thought of any ways to maybe make those blowers more energy efficient?
We did a major overhaul, if you may remember, back in 2015, 2016 with the wastewater treatment plant. I don't recall whether the blowers had been, how much of an upgrade there was to the blowers for the system. I can find that out for you. But again, that was 2015, 16 technologies with those. This whole area is evolving so fast. that for, I would imagine, a pretty expensive price tag, that we could upgrade those blowers to more efficient ones. But again, it would be extremely expensive, given that we're still paying debt on the water treatment, or wastewater treatment plant improvements. But it's something we could look at, but just know that the cost for doing these things right now at this point in time, it might be cost prohibitive to do that, regardless of the extra amount that we're having to pay for electricity, at least for this year with what we've experienced with rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to transfer, $13,178.40 from general fund to law enforcement trust fund. I think we've sort of touched on this before. Anything to add to it?
No.
Okay. So what line number is the trust fund?
293 or 4.
One of those up there. Okay.
Well, it's one of those two. There's two small funds like that. Law Enforcement Trust Fund, I can't think of the other one, but they're basically police funds with limited use of the money that's in there.
Okay.
Specific use.
All right. Ms. Mayor, anything to say? Audience? Committee? No? And then we have something down here, Columbus Road Fire Station lease authorization. So we're talking about old fire station number 2?
No, we're talking about
Old fire station number 1.
Oh, number 1, sorry.
our headquarters.
Yeah, right, sorry.
Yeah, this is, we've thought of a number of different things when it came to the former fire station headquarters, now that it is vacant. Everything from transferring it into the Athens Community Improvement Corporation to keeping it in city control, and as was indicated in this particular authorization, is to look at leasing it, and we'll put it out to the highest bidder on a lease agreement with using the fire station headquarters. We've had several businesses approach us that are interested in possibly moving into the fire station headquarters. But like I said, for us to go and transfer it into the Athens Community Improvement Corporation, the problems, lessons learned with ACIC is, as soon as it's transferred into ACIC, it comes off the tax exempt rolls when it comes to property taxes, and so, without reliable cash flow through the CIC, to move this into the CIC just won't work well. But for us to use it as an asset that can be leased to someone wanting to operate out of that particular building, we felt was the most appropriate thing to do with it at this point in time.
Okay.
The last thing I think we want to do, at least through my lens, is to sell, because once you sell it, it goes out to the highest bidder again, which council should be, that's how it works. And we have zero control at that point in time over, who would end up taking ownership of that facility and what it becomes in the future. Just don't know. So the lease route is easier, and the city still retains control over the use of that building.
Other elected officials, anything to say about it? The lease? No? Audience? Anything? Committee?
Oh, one more.
Oh, okay.
Sylvia Spielness, 87 University Estates Boulevard in Athens. Okay, so I'm not completely clear why it's a better idea to lease it. Considering that we've got some financial issues that have been well discussed, wouldn't it be better just to get it off our hands and have that money?
Once you sell it, that's one-time dollars, and there's no other revenue coming in from that. It's now in the hands of somebody else. It goes out sealed bid to the highest bidder.
Yeah, I get that, but can we get enough to lease it to make that worth it to hang on to it? Have we had some people ask about that?
I believe so.
Okay, have we had any interested parties so far?
We have,
Okay, so that looks promising to you.
it does.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anyone else out there that I can't see? No? Members of the committee, questions about this? Leasing the old number 1 fire station headquarters building? No? Well, in that case, Finance and Personnel Committee is finished.
Member Eisner, thank you very much. Sawadee krap. Have a safe journey and travels. And we'll see you in October. And we are adjourned at 8 p.m. Thank you.